Good afternoon and welcome to Tafakari. If you're new here, Tafakari is a Kiswahili word that means to ponder, to contemplate, or to think deeply. And really, it's the intention of this channel to encourage each one of us to think deeply about life's issues. Not only for the purposes of you living a meaningful life, but also at a societal level, at a global level, for the purposes of devising effective solutions to meet the challenges of our times. So, in this social edition, I'm going to talk about doing what you love. And this I recently came about in a particular podcast that I watched, a short video, and it struck a chord with me. It sounds very obvious that we should do what we love. But then the reality is that so many people are not doing what they love. So many people are living lives that are in direct or rather in contradiction with who they really are, or in contradiction with their inclinations. And for me, I feel that part of this, of course, let us not underestimate that obviously we have different circumstances. And for people perhaps who are, in the depth of a lot of struggles, a lot of poverty, they might not have the privilege of having to really invest in doing what you love for some time, you get? But another reason why I feel that, that aside, I feel that one of the reasons why we don't do what we love is nature. Because when we are young, you have a clean slate ahead of you. And there were things that you enjoyed to do. But the problem is because we live in a society and there are people around you, and these people contribute to your nurturing. Then we have the media, we have all these things. And the issue happens in that as you keep on growing, depending on, the prevalent, what can we say, depending on the prevalent narrative, you end up having a situation like what you love cannot take you anywhere. And that's for me is what I call, the trap of the market. So you loved to paint and you're told, nah, that's not going to take you anywhere. Get a real job, get a real vocation, get a real that, right? Or, it might be that doing what you love was something that other people thought, whatever you thought you said you love, other people thought, what's that? And so, you are ridiculed. And what ends up happening is that we suppress that part of our life. You go through the motions, you get a job, you go through school, you get a job. In fact, even for some of us, you go through school, you even take a course that you completely hated, you didn't care about. You might end up in a profession that you completely hate and you couldn't care about. And all this was so as to be with that, or rather deal to fulfill that metric of being realistic, or that metric of getting the approval of others. But the problem with that is that you realize, and this is where I say our things catch up with us, because at the end of the day, from the bottom of your heart, your soul, your spirit, whatever you call it, your conscience will always bother you. And if you reach to a part where you've numbed that part completely, so that you're not even aware that I'm here because I betrayed myself, it's just gonna spill in your behavior. It's going to spill in your relationships. It's going to spill in the way that you conduct yourself. It's going to spill in your demeanor. And that that is why I think it's so important that you call yourself to your own meeting, because eventually that life becomes untenable. It becomes difficult to keep up with. Putting on the persona, keeping up with the deception, it becomes, for example, even in careers. You realize their careers after a while that they just kill your soul. And unfortunately for some people, it's reaches a point where they've literally taken their own lives out of just these frustrations, unfortunately. Or if you're having to put that face, if you're having to put that facade, what happens? Then there's the issue of substance abuse. So many people have to find an outlet for numbing themselves just to turn up the next day in something that is not keeping them alive. And so, when you think about that, you realize as you keep on growing older, first of all, we have a fixed set of time on this earth. And that's why at some point you're going to it's the right thing to do is to be right by yourself. Because in any case, you've tried society's thing, you've done it, if you need to fulfill that metric, you've done it, but now you're empty. And empty to the point that life is becoming untenable. Empty to the point that now you have to get into numbing behaviors to be able to make it the next day. So at that point, you need to ask yourself, so is it really still worth it anymore? If you have to compromise your health, if you have to compromise your relationships, if you have to change your persona, if you have to change, become a completely different person to keep up that face, to deal with that emptiness, is it worth it? It's not. And especially, once you realize that life is finite, once you realize that, even unfortunately, and you see this in funerals, people will give a sentence here, there, was a great person, was a dear person, you'll miss them. If it is your job, the job that you're dying for, as they're sending your family a contribution, they've already advertised your jobs. If it's your family that you're sacrificing yourself for, they'll miss you, yeah. They will bury you, and at some point, life will go on, right? And so when you think about that, when you think about, just the fact that, the cost of betraying yourself, you think about companies moving on, so that job you're dying for, at the cost of what you love, can't be bothered. If you think about family, they will use you, they will get used to it. They will, they'll move along. But when you think about it, when it's all said and done, would you not want to live on your own terms? Right? And so that's why for me, I feel that, right now in my late 30s, there are a lot of things that I did because I thought this is what I should do. And, you call yourself to your own meeting eventually and you realize, nah, it's no longer giving me life. It's no longer fulfilling me. And you see, the other thing that people don't tell you is that somehow later on in life, the thing that you love, and I remember, a certain podcast saying this, it's actually when you do what you love, when you come alive through doing what you love, that you can actually make a wonderful career out of that. Because when you're in your element, when you're at your best, by doing what you love, you just ooze. And you find that people are willing to pay you for that. And so by part of that, you need courage. It's the courage to put the voices behind you that dinged you, that put you down. And it's also the courage and also self-love to be ruthless for yourself. Once you realize how finite life is, once you realize the cost of betraying yourself in terms of, your health, your demeanor, once you realize all that, then that's when you should become more ruthless for yourself, realizing that I have finite time, I've betrayed myself, that didn't help, so I've tried that, so why don't I try something new? And when I mean something new, I mean the thing that who I really was before the world decided to tell me who to be. So that's all that I had for today, and like I said, it really touched me because right now I'm very inclined with living a meaningful life. I'm preoccupied with such existential questions because you live after some time and you realize that all this stuff was a lie, mostly a capitalism lie that do this for the market, this is what is needed, blah blah blah. And then you realize somewhere along the way, nah, right? This is a big lie. It's not giving me peace, it's robbing me of my essence, right? So that's all that I had for today. And until next time, Kwaherini.